Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful you can join us for another week.
We sure are.
And today we're very lucky. We have with us Dr. Susan B. Barnes, and she's currently in Virginia Beach, but she's summers in Lilydale, New York. So welcome, Dr. Susan. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm a retired communication professor. I taught traditional communication for many years, and now I've switched over to spirit communication. So I'm doing all kinds of research and insight into how we communicate with the spirit world. And what else would I say? I am a certificate holder from the Spiritualist National Union in England, and I have a CSNU award from them. And of course, people know them from the Arthur Findlay College because they are also run that school. So I've spent many years at Arthur Findlay and have been doing mediumship for quite a while and learning all kinds of things about it.
Interesting. So what do you find, like what ways do you do spirit communication then besides the mediumship?
Okay, well, I also do spirit art. Now, traditionally, under most guidelines, spirit mediums are not supposed to use tools, except the tools I use are not prepackaged. They're tools that either I create or I create on the spot for the person. So it's a little bit different. So they kind of accept that a little bit more. I can do aurograph readings. I do card readings for people with encaustic wax. We do automatic drawing. What else? We do autographs, spirit portraits, which are considered to be evidential types of mediumship. So I do all these different types of things, and my goal is to help people who think they're not artists to show that they really can do these types of creative works. Moreover, they can do the work and they can get answers to spiritual questions or personal questions that they have.
Okay, that's interesting. So how would you go into doing a spirit art? Like if you were to draw or paint, I'm assuming it's painting, but do you do some kind of meditation beforehand, or how does it sort of take place?
Well, I would say that I'm going to use automatic drawing as probably an example. I mean, with automatic drawing, the traditional way of doing it is to let the hand move any way it wants to. You don't control it. So what I do is I have people sit down and relax. I have them try to clear their minds. And then when they feel moved, have them create some kind of image, could be a scribble, whatever that image is, on a piece of paper.
Okay.
Sometimes we do it with our eyes closed. Sometimes I do it with the opposite hand. If you're right-handed, we do it with the left hand.
Okay.
So that way it activates the subconscious mind to actually help create the image.
Look.
So it would be similar to doing automatic writing then in
Yes.
some ways. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I've done that, which is very interesting, I find, because just what comes out once you just kind of clear your mind and put that pen to paper is,
Cool.
You'd think it wouldn't make sense, but in the end it really does.
Some doesn't though.
I mean, it's like free flow. You want to just let it to free flow and let the information take form. But if you do, and I always do a prayer before we do the work and set an intention for what we're going to do so that the spirit world knows the role they're supposed to play.
Right.
And so has to be told.
So do you do any paintings or anything like that yourself, or?
Oh yeah, I've just started a series of paintings on clairvoyant images I've had in dreams and different images that have come to me. And so I've been trying to paint those now.
Oh, interesting.
So the ones that are behind you there, are they some that you have painted as well?
No, This one I painted. This is
Okay.
years ago. This one, well, the other one a friend did of me years ago.
Cool.
Oh, that's really
College.
Nice.
very
Very
neat, very neat. So, do you think then being a medium, do you think anyone could be a medium?
Yes, I think everyone has the inherent skills to be a medium. However, I would make a note that someone who's going to go out and give messages to people and things like that should have some training, should kind of know the do's and don'ts of what's appropriate and what's not.
I agree.
I do believe in
I
training
agree.
very much so.
Yeah. And so when you do your mediumship, do you go into a trance, or how do you kind of do your mediumship?
Well, what happens is that when you're doing evidential mediumship and you're really close to that spirit world, you're in an altered state. So in that altered state, the messages are coming through to you and you just give what you get, type of thing. So yeah, I know I'm in a slightly altered state when I'm working that way, but I also am a trance medium, so I do go into a full trance state and do speaking.
Interesting.
Cool.
So you do like you channel in then when you're in the trance then, or how does that work?
It's like channeling. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what inspired you to do this? Like what kind of was your journey that led you on the path to get into doing mediumship and into the spirit art and the things like that?
Well, I always knew that I had abilities since a child, and I was kind of looking throughout my adult life. I was kind of looking for a group or someplace where I would kind of fit and belong and get trained. And I never found it until I moved to Rochester, New York, which is the birthplace of spiritualism. And once I found spiritualism, everything just clicked.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
And then I started studying because I am a PhD, right? I believe in education. So then I started studying with the SNU online and at the Arthur Findlay College.
Oh, neat. And I agree with you. I think it's nice to find your place in the world. And I know we've been to Lilydale just to visit, and it's a very quaint place. And it was really neat because you can feel the energy when you're just walking around in there, and it just feels very relaxed, is how I felt with it.
There's so much prayer and everything. We were there too. The Tibetan monks were there building
Oh, yes.
the mandala, and oh my God, it was beautiful. We did do the
Labyrinth.
the labyrinth as well. Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah. Oh, when the months come, it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun down there. So you have your own studio in Lilydale then later in the year?
I have a house in Lilydale, and I have what used to be like a garage. I have set up as a gallery space in there. And I don't know. I'm buying a second house. I don't know whether I'll turn it into a full gallery or not.
Oh,
That's neat. And so is it just your work, or is it all kinds of
no, I don't do just my work. I have scrying images by Philip Wyatt, and I have other artists in there that have done work, so it's not just me.
Neat. And you said that you hold spirit art classes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, those are great fun. They're just real. I'll tell you, the spirit portraits are probably the most unique, because when I was doing that in Lilydale, what I would do is I would stand up and do a demonstration and do a spirit portrait, which somebody in the audience would recognize. And then after describing the process, I would turn it around and say to all of them, now you're going to do a spirit portrait. And he's like, and,
put on the spot.
no. And they're all like, I can't draw. And I tell them that with the spirit portraits, even if it's a stick figure, there's usually something in there that a person can recognize from a loved one. So once I get over that fear, I have everyone draw, they get in partners and they draw a spirit portrait for each other. And, most of the time they're taken.
Cool.
Wow.
And then people walk out of there going like, I can't believe I just did this. Yeah, they're baffled. So that's fun. That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun. And it's interesting, I find, when you open up your mind to doing some of these things. I know we've been in some intuition classes along the way, probably earlier in our journey, but doing psychometry and some of that stuff. And right, just that when somebody hands you something, you're like, yeah, I'm not getting anything from that. And then
All
it
of a sudden,
usually surprises you once you
yeah.
kind of let go of that inhibition and that, blocking of how we are in our everyday life.
I had somebody do a spirit picture for me, and it was a Aboriginal Native spirit guide that came through, and it was actually very good. The person was blind that did them. Yeah, long time ago, way long time ago.
Yeah. Well, I'm being technically, they don't recognize guides with spirit portraits, but I've drawn them too. It's happened to me.
Yeah.
Because they're looking for strict evidence of continuity of life. I mean, that's what people like the SNU and NSAC and organizations like that are really, their purpose is to get evidence of the continuity of life, which means you have to give evidential messages, not just feel-good messages. And so with the portraits, you have to bring through family members or friends.
Okay, that's very neat.
Yeah.
So with evidential mediumship, can you explain to our followers, if they don't know what that is, what exactly that means? Like what you would expect if you were getting that kind of a mediumship reading?
Well, an evidential message, and it depends. There's two ways of doing it. I find that when you do it, what we call the indirect style, where you just do spirit first and allow the spirit to come in, and you get a person and you say, okay, spirit, and then you have to describe the person, what they look like, what they did, how they passed, all kinds of information about them. And then you ask people in the audience who can take it. Now, when I did this in England, of course, I give out probably 8 pieces of evidence, and there's usually 2 or 3 people that can take it. Then you got to go back and get more evidence until only one can take all of it.
Okay, interesting. So if you were doing mediumship and more than one person is taking those messages, that's not the same as the evidential then. That'd be the difference.
That is evidential, because what it is you're narrowing down the information so that only one person understands everything.
Right.
I mean,
okay.
I had a spirit art drawing that was done for me by Stella Upton, and she must have given 25 or 30 pieces of evidence to a group of about 25. And out of the 25, the restriction was you had to take every single piece of evidence. And I was the only person in the group that could take every single piece.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Wow, that is really neat.
Especially that many. Wow.
That's what they say. So if it's, and the strict stuff, if you're being really strict about it, I know some people, when they're first doing it, they'll say, I have a man, he's got blue eyes, light brown hair, he's very tall, very thin. I feel that he worked in like an accountant or with numbers or something with that effect. He's dressed in a suit. Who can take this? And that's still somewhat general. You could have a couple of people take it, and then they'll say, okay, now we got to go back and just ask them, okay, what can you tell me about yourself that will enable this person to understand who it is? and they might say something like, I played golf every Friday. No, I'm serious. You'll get something like that.
Yeah.
And that's the key piece of evidence, because how many people actually play golf every Friday?
Yeah, that's true. That's
You know
right.
what I mean? So that's where the evidential comes in. And usually there's like one piece of it that's something, nobody would really know about the person, or you might get a nickname for the person, or something they did in their life. I don't know, I'm thinking someone would always eat pecan ice cream, I mean, that was his favorite ice cream or something. And
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's
Yeah.
it's interesting. I love that, because I think the more specific you can be, the more you know that that's your loved one coming through
That's
and
true.
and getting the message, right? Whatever it is they want to say to you at that point. So, or just that they're there.
Yeah, and then the message, what happens with me with the messages, and then if I've got the link that closely, all of a sudden they just start saying things, and I just repeat it. I won't remember what I said
Yeah,
because it's not going through my conscious mind, and then I'll just tell them what the person's saying.
yeah, yeah.
So do you have any sort of things that happen to you when you know spirit is coming in? Or you just tap into it going into that situation where you're doing the mediumship?
Well, I have to say I'm either turned on or turned off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in my everyday life, like right now, I'm not tuned in.
Okay.
But I do have to kind of mentally tune myself in.
Same.
Messages. Yeah.
Lately, I've
Usually,
been getting cigarette smoke from somebody I don't know. Someone around me wants me to, trying to give me messages, but the smell of the tobacco comes through so strong. It's like, woo! I'm having a hard time getting past that to actually get the messages. So I don't know who it is.
So you must be open.
not sure who was the smoker.
I know a few, like back in our day, everybody smoked, right? Or it seemed like it. But
Yes.
this
Yeah.
person smelled like, this person smells really strong cigarette smell. So I'm still trying to get who that is, or if it's for somebody else that I'm going to be seeing for a reading or something. Maybe that's what it is. It'll come in stronger later. I don't know, but it sure has been at my back door.
I've had more of smelt cigarette smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the clairs. I mean, people don't think about it very often, but when you're teaching and you're trying to stretch people with their mediumship, one of the things you'll do is say, okay, get a scent, get a smell, and then build your message off that smell.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Something's going to come from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how you said that you're turned on or you're turned off, because I think
So true.
there's a lot of, I don't want to say misinformation, but I feel like sometimes people think that, like, as I know, I have said to people, I do readings and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, I'm like, no,
Oh, yeah.
no, actually.
Some people are afraid of you. Some people are excited, but they want a reading right away. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't work like that.
It's like, I'm not on, because if I was on all the time, I'd probably go insane.
Yeah, you can be.
Can't be on all the time. And there are people that don't know how to turn it off when they're first doing it. And so one of the first things I have to do is say to them, you can't be on all the time.
Yeah, drive you crazy.
Crazy. I mean, especially if you're on in public spaces like bars. Oh no.
Right?
I turned off once in a bar. We'll never do it again.
I know, eh? I've done that too.
Yeah,
What's wrong with you, Barb? What were you thinking?
It was
Right.
the mall for me when I was young and didn't understand. And I'd go to the mall and I'd be like, oh, I gotta get out of here. There's just too much,
Yeah.
right? And
Too much
it's
clutter.
about setting those boundaries, I think, with yourself and with spirit, to say, this is when you can come, this is not when you can come.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is certain boundaries that you set with spirit, or do they sneak in sometimes even when they're not supposed to?
No, the only boundary the only boundary I really set with them was when I first started doing mediumship. I was lucky, I was working with British mediums right from the beginning. And so I said to Spirit, I said, I always want a connection or a link, a spirit link with my work. I don't want to just do psychic work. So they've been good about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Paying attention, right? That's what it
Right.
is.
Yeah, because it'll happen to me too. Usually around people, I can tell whether they have a mother or father in the spirit world,
Yeah,
or some brother or somebody like that.
yeah, somebody anyway. Yeah, yeah. Good connection. Very nice connection, actually. But no, I'm sure I'm going to find out where this tobacco smell is. It's just not yet. And I don't push spirit either. I just say, okay, when you're ready to let me know about that, okay, I'm good. You know,
The other suggestion, I don't know if you had a teacher or a mentor who was a smoker.
actually, no, I didn't. But it's like, I feel like it's a male presence, but I just can't put my finger on it, because I thought at first it was a girl I know that was a heavy smoker, but it's not. It's somebody that's a male it's on the other side, but they're just not ready to come through to me. I don't know what the message is, but I guess when I'm ready to hear it, I'll get it. You know, that's what I keep saying. Spirit just does what they want to do, right? I say that.
They're in control.
I
I know people come to me all the time. They're like, I want to be this type of medium. And I'm like, don't be so sure. I said, because the spirit world is going to do what they're going to do. They're not going to do what you want to do.
Actually, I just did a reading the other day, and a spirit came through, but they were sort of hiding behind the person. They didn't really want to come in. They were just sort of playing that little peek around thing, you know, and while they were there. But it was interesting because they were doing that. Another spirit did come through and wanted to say something. It turned out when the spirit came through, the next spirit finally came through, because they wanted to be told, they wanted to be known too, because it was a grandmother and her daughter that were coming through. And so they both had information, but they didn't get along in this lifetime. So it was really interesting commenting and kind of trying to do the commentating with that, because the actions around it it was cool.
Yeah, but that also proves a point too, which is that when people go to the spirit world, they do maintain a certain amount of their personality. So if they go over there and they don't like somebody, they're not necessarily going to interact with them on the other side.
That's true. That was a real story of that one there too. It was actually quite funny after it was all said and done. Then I sat back and really thought about it and thought, oh, you little bugger. You know. But they do that. They have a personality of their own, I find. Yeah.
I would have to say, probably the best evidential mediumship I've ever seen, people were giving addresses and phone numbers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I actually saw, was it Mavis Patilla? I think it was Mavis Patilla once give a license plate number.
Wow, that's deep.
That's crazy.
Wow,
But it just shows that, right? You can get that information if you're connected enough and allow that.
Spirit world. Yeah. It depends on how close they can get to you.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
So do you think there's things then do you think there's things then that can block us from being able to listen to the spirit world?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Lots of things.
Like what would be some things you would say?
Well, I mean, I think the hardest part, and in some ways, I know when I first saw mediums working, I was like, what's the trick? What's the trick? You know, what are they doing? I want to do that. How is it happening? And the trick is you have to be able to clear your mind. You have to work with your own consciousness, and you have to be able to get that clutter that goes on that most people have in their minds, that constant talking of, I'm going to do this, I have to be there, I didn't do that, oh no. going on. You have to get rid of that and just allow the subconscious mind to be in tune with the spirit world. For example, I had somebody do brainwaves on me when I was in trance recently, and the whole left side of my brain was like this, and the right side was going like this. So there you could see that the left side was not active.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to tell people, clear your mind. Don't let anything get in there and disturb it. And so that's one thing that blocks it. Another thing that blocks a lot of mediums is the fact that our minds like stories. We love to tell stories. I know, and I keep using the bicycle, but so if spirits gives me the image of a bicycle, I've trained myself to now just say bicycle, nothing with it. But most people would say bicycle. Oh, she's riding a bicycle down the street. No, she never rode a bicycle.
You're right.
But she got hit by a bicycle once. You know what I mean? So the person's going to say, no, she never rode a bicycle. But if you just said bicycle, they would have said, oh, yes, she got injured by a bicycle once.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So filling in that space, right? Because you're right. I think as humans, we just want to elaborate all the time.
And the other thing people do, and they don't realize it, is that, and then people get self-conscious about their own mediumship, and they'll start going, well, I don't really get names. And they're trying to hold on to a link, and they're going, I don't really get names. So as soon as they do that, they're going to break the link.
Right.
Yeah. So keeping that link and learning to keep that link and not letting your conscious mind interfere with this it takes practice.
Yes.
It does take practice. I think too, because we're empaths too. So you're also picking up, their emotions and things like that sometimes. So that can also confuse you when you're trying to do something with them,
Yeah, well, what you have to learn to do, and I've gotten pretty good at it, is you have to be able to distinguish when you're picking up psychic information off the person and when you're picking up spirit information from the spirit world.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And they are different.
They are different. Yeah. It's two different types of communication. But I mean, it's only really a trained medium that's going to be able to say, and I do this with clients. If I'm working with a client and, first I'm bringing through relatives and all that stuff, and I'll say, do you have any questions? And they'll ask me a question about their everyday life. Then I'll say to them, okay, I have to shift into a psychic mode now to feel information, and get that information.
Yeah, because it's different. And I know for myself, it's interesting. Sometimes I'll get visions or whatever when I'm doing my meditations is often when it comes for me. Because obviously I'm in a quiet space and my mind is full of space, and then that's where it will come in, and then I just share it with whoever, and it's like, I don't know if this will mean something to you. Here's what I got.
That's all you can do is just tell them what you got.
Yeah. So you were talking before we got on about some wax art. Can you explain that a little bit? Is that similar to the drawing?
Well, what's neat about it, I'm sorry, I don't have any examples on me right now. We made tons of them yesterday. What we do, and this is everybody can do it. And here's the inexpensive way to do it. The inexpensive way to do it is to go to a thrift store, or in England, a charity shop. You go to a thrift store and you get an old iron. And you go to the dollar store, the pound store, and you pick up a box of crayons and some poster boards. And then you melt the wax on the iron and you paint with it with iron.
Oh, okay.
And then I usually put 3 colors on. You keep putting different colors of wax on the iron, and then you paint with it. Now, there is real encaustic wax. It's a little brighter. It's a little, the texture is a little finer, more delicate than your crayons. But if you want to do it fairly inexpensively, the other thing to do is I go to Joann's Fabric and I get these little irons that are what they call collar irons,
Okay.
handy irons. There's a name for them. You can get them on Amazon too. And I use the little irons so that I melt the wax on the little irons, so it's much more easier to paint with them.
Yeah, it would be.
Mhm. It would. And so then when you're done that, then you just look at that drawing and see what pops out of the wax then, or
I'll give you an example from
Okay.
yesterday. The other thing we do is I'll put a metal plate on like a pancake platter, that heats up. So I put the metal plate on, I put the crayons on the metal plate, and then I take a piece of finger painting paper, because the paper has to be shiny, and I put it on and I make a print out of it. But before people do that, I tell them to ask a question. Ask a question, make the print, and see if the print will give you an answer. Well, a woman did a print, and it was very clear when she showed it to us that in the print there was a tall figure and a shorter figure in it. And we were trying to figure it out. And finally, I looked at her and said, "What was your question?" And she said, "Oh, my question is about a relationship that I have." And we were all going, "Well, the taller figure looks like it's more domineering than the smaller figure." And she said, "Yes, he's very demanding type or a domineering type of person." And I looked at the image and I just said to her, I said, "Look, what I see here is, if you want to have a relationship with this person, you need to make sure that this person knows who you really are, and that you're not just being timid around him so he thinks, you do whatever he wants. You have to be yourself." And so that was the advice we gave to her off of the picture.
interesting.
Very
Interesting.
interesting.
So if you're doing it, then you want to do it with that intent of asking a question before you start the artwork.
Yeah, I usually, what I do is I have them do a practice one first, so they get used to the materials and the tools. And I do two things. You can do autographs from them, so you could do one for somebody else and then read it for that person and give them a reading from it. Or you can set an intent for yourself. Usually, it's a question that doesn't have to be yes or no, but it's something that would have a positive or negative type of thing. And we can tell from the image right away whether it's going to work out or not.
Right. And what is an orograph, just for anybody that doesn't know?
Now, an orograph is slightly different. An orograph is usually done in a circle, like Carl Jung's mandalas.
Mhm.
And that's because it's the micro and the macro. So you do the image in a circle, so you can also turn it around and read it different ways. And basically, it's more of a psychic image, because you sit there with the client and you try to read the symbols come into your mind, and then spirit will direct you where to put them in the image. For example, symbols on the bottom of the image usually have to deal with childhood issues, and then as they get older, the images will reveal more things about themselves. I'll give you an example, and the images can even show things about somebody you've known for a long time. I did an autograph for a friend of mine, actually a person I'd been dating, and I did the autograph, and then I stepped back and I looked at it and I said, "Gee, I never knew he was really moody." And later, I never gave him the image, but later I asked him, I said, "Are you moody sometimes?" He goes, "Yes, yes." So, I mean, I learned something about the person because up there in his adult life, there were lots of clouds, and the clouds were kind of, some had a load of darkness in them, some were light. So I could tell by the way I drew the clouds that there was a lot of moodiness going on there.
Oh, that's neat.
That's cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I think it's neat too, because you can use it in your everyday life, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think the nice thing, and the wax is fairly simple to do. You just have to make sure you don't burn your hand with the iron, and that you can do it quickly. You can just take the iron, melt some wax on it, and do things. I also make cards out of them, and I do a big sheet and then I cut them all up into cards. I let people in a reading pick the card. And then from the card, first I can tell them some psychic information about themselves. And then I look for faces in the images, and I'll find faces. And sometimes the faces resemble the people who are coming through.
Oh,
Interesting.
Yeah, I once did an image, and I'm looking at the image of the guy with a mustache and hair, and I'm talking to the client, and I'm saying, I have a man here that's got a mustache. And she's like, yes, yes, yes. So I showed him the image on the card, and she says, yeah, that looks just like him.
Wow. That's
And we get pets. We get lots of pets.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that. Do you think it's possible to see faces other places, like I don't know if you need to be tapped in to do that, or but if you're looking at a tree, or you're looking at because I find myself one of the things that I do, and I don't know if it's just because I'm in a meditative spot at that time, but I'll be looking at a tree and then I'm seeing all these faces, or I'm seeing all these animals, and I don't know what to do with that information other than just be like, oh, that's cool, there's a face in the whatever.
Well, for me, I look at the faces, and depending on whether I'm reading for a person or not, I try to identify them as best I can. Sometimes there are spirit faces, they're guides. I mean, I've had guides come through on the cards, but also what happens in the cards, which is really interesting, is there's a little bit of physical phenomena that goes on with my cards, because sometimes when I'm looking at them, I'll find a face, and then it'll kind of disappear, and I'll find a different one, and different things will happen kind of with the cards, or spirit will show me different things with the cards.
Yeah, it shifts it.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
Yeah, that is neat. Yeah.
That is a neat way to do it. And so if you had to give one piece of advice to everybody, what would be your advice to give to everybody, or message to give to everybody?
If they want to do this kind of work?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the whole thing with this kind of work is no judgment. You can't have judgment. You can't go into it saying, I'm a rotten artist. You have to go into it with an openness and say, Spirit's going to help me do this. Set your intention, create your drawing, and look at the drawing and see what's in there. I mean, if there's animals in there, maybe there are your pets that have passed that are trying to remind themselves to you. If it's a face, maybe it's a face of a grandparent, or a face of a friend, or a face of someone that you've known. It's to just say hi to you.
Mm-hmm.
But no judgment. That's the biggest thing. You can't judge the art. You just do it. You have to let it flow. Let it flow.
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth? That's the truth. Don't question.
What is one of the most maybe profound things that you've had happen to you along your journey that has inspired you or has pushed you further into your journey?
Well, I did start doing spirit art when I was at an ISF conference in England, but I have a unique spirit art story. So I'll share that with you. There are also spirit artists that are trance artists. They go into a state of trance and they do paintings from famous artists like Cézanne and Renoir, Picasso.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's one woman who paints with her feet and her hands. There's another one, Jose Madrado, who does images that look like similar to Cézanne's and Renoir's and things like that. So I was at a event in England, a physical mediumship event, and Jose was there. And since I collect the art, of course, my first thought is, oh, I got to get a piece of this art, What they do is they auction it off at the end. They create all these paintings and then they auction them off to raise money, usually for a orphanage or something like that, some type of thing. They're mostly Brazilian, some type of charity in Brazil. they use the money for. So anyway, so he's painting. Before it, I said, oh, well, okay, what am I going to do? I'll say, okay, I could take the worst one, because that's what I did last time. I took the one I bought the one nobody wanted. And so I got the spirit art. And then I'm sitting there going, well, if he draws a person, I'll just say it's my grandmother. And then I went, oh, no, that's so unethical, totally unethical. You can never, ever, ever do that.
Right.
So I'm sitting there, that's out of my mind. I'm sitting there during the demonstration. He's doing landscapes, he's doing different things. And at the very end of the demonstration, he did a portrait. And he started doing the portrait, and then he erased the face and put a different face in there. They held it up, and I gasped because I said, oh my God, that's my grandmother.
But it really was.
No, she had the red hair and the green eyes of my grandmother, and the nose too. In fact, people were telling me I look like the image of the woman in the painting as I was walking around with it. But I was just flabbergasted. I just, it's strange what spirit will do.
Yes, it is. We often say that when we're doing anything, it's like, okay, you can't make some of this stuff up. It just happens, and it's, what are the odds, and what are, it seems coincidental, but in the end that it's not coincidental. It's meant to be.
Yeah, spirits have their own way of doing what they want to do.
The other thing that happens a lot with the art is that there'll be a room full of people. And people will draw the same image, or people will get the same symbol, or a lot of people will get the same thing. So it's not just coincidental. They're kind of telepathically picking up stuff.
Each other.
Yeah, absolutely. That is neat.
Yeah, that is. Well, no, I'm good. This was this was a beautiful experience with you and what you told us about today. I'm certain there's going to be a lot of people that will look at this and go, whoa, I can do that too, or at least try, right? And
everybody can do this.
Yes. And it's about people trying to do something else that can connect them to the spirit world to give them their answers. And this would be a beautiful way.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to give it a shot.
Yeah, me too.
The other thing I do, I just started doing it with my automatic drawing classes. Is we'll do just black and white charcoal for the first drawings. And of course, with charcoal, it smudges, you can get all kinds of images and see beautiful things out of it. But then I started getting the pastel colors, and I have people, intuitively pick a color, and they pick and they start to just do a shape or whatever with the color on the paper, and then have them give a reading while they're doing that. Because what happens is, while they're drawing the color, their thinking mind gets out of the way and they're able to give better messages.
Oh, interesting.
So that's another good trick.
Well, and that's a good trick, because
good to know.
Because I think too often, like you said, we get in our own way, and we can't stop that chatter that's inside of there. And you're doing a reading for somebody else, but your brain is still thinking about what I eat for breakfast. So don't forget the milk.
Sorry about that.
I'm gonna cook for dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, like I've done that, more when I've been doing a reading, usually for somebody, my mom or somebody that I know, and it's like all of a sudden you find your mind drifting. You're like, okay, I'm not actually.
Get back here.
I'm not connected. Let's try this later. Well, it's been an honor and a real pleasure to have you on our podcast.
Yes, very much.
Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Okay, my website and my email are the same type of thing. It's spirit, spirit, art, gallery, gallery.net. So it's www.spiritartgallery.net is my website, which has all my contact information. And my email address is spiritartgallery@gmail.com.
Okay, perfect. And do you have anything coming up here? This is actually going to air in August. So do you have anything that will be coming up after August into September of 2024?
I'm trying to think. I might have an event. This past year, I did an event in September called Art in the Dale, and we got a grant so we could give people art supplies, and we did. Part of it was an encaustic wax workshop, and part of it was a watercolor workshop. So people got to experience spirit art.
Wonderful. So if they follow along on your website, you put your events up there.
They can
Right.
find it there.
And then to find my free classes, they are on the Victor Zammit site, which is www.victor, VICTOR, Zammit, ZAMMIT.com/Zoom.
Okay, perfect.
You can get my lectures and a lot of other people's lectures on that site.
Oh, cool.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I will put all of those in the show notes. And again, it was wonderful having you on, and lots of information, lots of neat things for people to try and do. And yeah, so thank you so much for sharing space with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome. It was a
Okay,
pleasure. Thank you.
thanks.